Marinero, the Sick Podcast, and the Montreal Canadiens are 0-3 to start the season. I hate to say I told you so. Actually, I've never hated to say I told you so. I'm always happy to say I told you so. But Brian Wild of Global TV Montreal, I had a bad feeling about this team going into the season. And right now, I was right.
Yeah, I didn't have a terrible feeling in July at the end of the Stanley Cup playoffs. I thought it'd be really hard, but I looked at who's in the East and I predicted around 10th. But then my feeling got worse when, of course, Carey Price wasn't around and Edmondson wasn't around and Hoffman wasn't around. And then my feeling got even worse when I saw how they handled camp, because I thought they did a really crappy job at camp. They didn't really prepare all of these new players to get any chemistry. There were like 50 guys left at the end of camp. The second last and the last game, there were a bunch of lines. You were going, no. You got to play everybody now. They got to be developing their chemistry in the last 2 games of camp, not the first 3 games of the regular season. And now next week coming up. So I agree with you, sir.
It's the Sick Podcast, and the show is brought to you by Essentia, the world's only natural memory foam mattress. Go to myessentia.com/sickpod and use code SICKPOD for a free pillow with your purchase. Essentia, beyond organic sleep. Brian, losing hockey games is one thing, but I'm telling you, from an entertainment standpoint, they're putting me to sleep. Man, it's boring.
You and I have been talking to each other a long time about hockey, and that's one of the things we've always said to each other, Tony, is if you can't win, at least entertain me. And you're absolutely right. This is some really low event hockey, and I'm having a hard time filling my Call of the Wild column, because you're looking for horses and you're just saying, who's making highlight reel plays? Who's making anything that stands out here worth noting? I'm having a hard time finding things to note in a column about the game. 60 minutes of action, and I can't even single out the other night, I couldn't single out a single person for something who did something good in the game in Buffalo. I don't know if that's ever been a problem, that I couldn't find one moment that really shone. They scored one, sure, but that doesn't mean those players were a horse or any good.
Now, there was a moment in the game versus the Rangers, and it's Jonathan Drouin's goal, which was a beautiful goal, but we'll get to that in a second. Brian, I got to tell you, every day that I've worked for the last 20 years, the second I start talking about soccer, I'll have a bunch of people texting me or emailing me or tweeting me or messaging me, telling me to stop talking about soccer because soccer is a bunch of 0-0 games and it's boring.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you this, okay? I was at Stade Saputo on Saturday afternoon, and then I watched the Canadiens on Saturday night. One was definitely a lot more entertaining than the other. With all due respect to the Canadiens, I'm sorry. And I take a look at CF Montreal's last 3 games, and they've been a lot more entertaining than the Habs' first 3 games. And look, and that'll come around. At one point, the Canadiens will have some entertaining games. I get it. It's just that, once again, we've been without hockey for the longest time. There were over 20,000, the fans were in the stands. There were over 20,000 people. It was full capacity pretty much on Saturday night. And you give them something, man.
Yeah, the only way I'm going to defend the club is to suggest that right now in the league, I think overall, I don't know what they're setting the over-under lines at these days, but if they're setting most of the games at 5.5, if you look at Saturday night's action in the NHL, there's a lot of unders in the NHL. There's a lot of defensive
surprisingly so, much to my surprise, because the first month and a half of the season, usually the defense isn't fine-tuned.
Absolutely, but the game is just being coached to death right now. What's fun? Odd man rushes. How many do you see now? In the first 3 games, how many odd man rushes have there been for the Montreal Canadiens? Is it 0?
No, I don't know.
Maybe
but
they've had
a
3-on-2, but they haven't had a breakaway.
Yeah.
Have they had a 2-on-1? I'm getting a little older, so I don't have perfect recall of exact moments, but
Brian, to have odd man rushes,
you
need to have offensive defensemen. You have to have defensemen that pinch. You need to have great puck movers. You need to have a transition game.
And mistakes that coaches allow.
Yeah.
The game is just coached to death, and that's why we love 3-on-3, because it takes so much of the coaching out of the game and lets them have some open ice to have some fun. And So that's the only thing I have in the Canadiens' defense because, Tony, I absolutely have to agree with you. I mean, I want to be entertained. Like when you get my age and you've been covering the game as long as I have, and as long as you've been covering them, we look for the home team to do well because it makes our jobs easier and more fun. And the people that listen to us and read us more engaged, which helps, naturally our page views and your page watches.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you and I want only one thing, and that's to be entertained when we watch.
The most entertainment was the opening ceremony and Jonathan Drouin's goal. And I have to tell you, the Canadiens, for the most part, have done opening ceremonies for their home opener very, very good. I always enjoy it. I usually PVR it, and I watch it on more than one occasion. It's something that I really enjoy. I got a tough question for you, though, but you're a big boy, and I know you can handle it. Were you disappointed that Shea Weber wasn't in the building?
Well, I thought he would be, but I guess he had some business out west, and that's why he couldn't make it. But I tend to get over disappointment like that pretty quickly because I think these men are allowed to have their lives too. And as much as I would have loved to have seen him there, I mean, if he had something pressing with his family, then I'm certainly not going to ever sit there and suggest somebody should ever have, the 11 seconds he would have gotten a nice ovation be more important than a family matter. So yeah, sure, disappointed, but also pretty easy for me to get over it too.
All right. So I'm probably going to take heat for this, but I mean, I'll say it anyway.
That's you, man.
Thank you. And that is, I'm not going to lose any sleep over Shea Weber not being there. I want that to get out of the, get that out there right away. And yes, if he had an important family engagement, by all means, I'm okay with that. Okay. Mm-hmm. But if he didn't, because I don't know, Shea Weber's made over $120 million in his career, and Jeff Molson probably has that in his sock. All right. Somebody get that man on a plane, because until he's no longer the captain of the Montreal Canadiens, he's the captain of the Montreal Canadiens. And I think he should have been there. And I think he should have taken a plane down, been there, and then he could have taken the plane back to Kelowna, BC. Now, once again, if it was an important family commitment that he had, then it's okay. He's off the hook, and I get that. And I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. But it's the Montreal Canadiens. These players and these people, they mean so much to the community, to the city, to the fan base. For some, that would have made their year. You know what I mean? And so that part of me finds it unfortunate.
I've said my piece on the matter.
Yeah. In Carey Price's case, look, he entered the players' assistance program. We don't know where he is. And probably, he was, he was in the middle of something very important. So, I mean.
It was sure nice, though, to hear the ovation that Jonathan Drouin got.
Yeah.
I don't know why, because listening to Joe talk about it, it seems as if he might have been under the impression that people weren't going to be considerate and forgiving and understanding and on his side. And I find that sad because it just kind of shows me how far we have to go in having compassion for mental health issues, because he shouldn't think for even a second that everybody wasn't going to be, standing and applauding and supporting and loving him.
Didn't surprise me one bit, Brian. Brian,
that transcends hockey.
Yeah.
So I was really, really happy. And I'm actually, I tweeted once, I'm sorry, I'm going to be a fan of Joe. So if you were looking for me to be unbiased towards Jonathan Drouin this year, you found the wrong guy, because I'm just going to be cheering for him. I want him to feel good, again. So if there's one Canadian that I'm going to drop my reporter's hat for, it's definitely going to be him. And I'm thrilled he scored already. And the joy was obvious when he scored. They couldn't give him the W, but at least he got the joy again of scoring a goal in front of the Bell Center crowd. And considering where he must have been at one point last year in his life, that's a beautiful moment.
His second goal in 3 games for the Canadiens was a real beauty, right? What a pass by Dvorak and hey?
They only got 3, dude.
Yeah.
He's got 2 of them.
He's got 2 of them. 3 goals in 3 games. And all right,
crazy, right?
All right, you can go to sportbuffshop for all of your officially sportbuffshop.com for all of your officially licensed sports apparel and more, and even our sick merchandise. By the way, use code 615 for 15% off on all of their items. If you want to pick up a Jonathan Drouin jersey, that's the place where you can do it. All right, okay. So the opening ceremony was great. The ovations were great. Jonathan Drouin's goal was great. What's not great now is what you just talked about: 3 goals in 3 games. How concerned are you? With the line of Suzuki, Caulfield, and Toffoli?
So concerned. I was happy that they switched it out on Saturday because there was nobody to go get the puck, which I said during night one. Who's your F1 on that line? I mean, you and I remember 3-4 years, now it's longer than that now, 5-6 years ago, you and I would talk all the time about the 3 components that are necessary for a good line. Someone to go get it, someone to pass it, and someone to shoot it. And that line just didn't have a go-get-it guy. And the team lacks go-get-it guys, right? I mean, you'd have a hard time finding on each line easily a go-get-it, an F1, a forechecker who can muck. I mean, one of the best forecheckers on the team is actually Brendan Gallagher, and he's like 5'9", 5'10".
Ryan,
so,
speaking of muckers, that's one of the problems I have with this team going into the
100%.
season. They are not tough at the forward position. They're,
100%.
I mean, Joel Armia is big and strong. I get that, but is he really the only guy that I think is really big and really tough at the forward position is Josh Anderson?
Absolutely.
It's not enough.
No, not enough. I agree. And look at the one line that's doing well. And again, we talk about the way the hockey is being played right now. In some capacity, it feels like playoff hockey already at the start of the season. It's so, constricted and difficult to find the space. So the way the team is kind of composed right now, if it feels as if the Josh Andersons of the world are the ones you really need already. And like, generally speaking, the first 20 are supposed to be the loose games of the year, right? And they're not loose at all.
The guy who scored the first goal of that hockey game yesterday, Chris Kreider, that's the kind of player that they need, right? A guy who goes to the net, and a guy who mucks, and a guy who goes in the corners, and a guy who fights for pucks. Anyway, Kreider scores, Rangers go up 1-0. Jonathan Drouin ties it at 1. But as fast as Drouin ties it, it's Alexis Lafreniere who gives the Rangers a 2-1 lead. Brian, I've been watching the replay of that goal over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
The Canadians lose a face-off in the offensive zone. Nick Suzuki does, if memory serves me well. And then Jake Evans, who's lined up on the left wing, he goes after it. And Adam Fox pulls a little bit of a move where he goes one way and Evans loses his footing and falls down. So Fox spins and turns and makes his way up. And there goes the transition game for the Rangers. Mm-hmm. A great pass by him to through the seams, through a couple of players. And then all of a sudden, it's a 2-on-1. And Savard cannot tie up Lafreniere. Zibanejad's able to get him that pass. And those are just mistakes. Toffoli was slow in getting back. And Jake Evans, I like the guy so much, but
they overvalued him, I think.
They overvalued him.
Yeah.
They overplay him. Mm-hmm. He's not a third-line centerman. He is a fourth-line centerman,
100%.
/ fourth-line winger. And on some nights, maybe not in the lineup if you have a lot of depth.
And hopefully that depth is coming in the terms of Hoffman coming back, and maybe that makes the difference overall because, I mean, right, and Byron. Everybody forgets Byron. And a healthier team would be a much better team. But, they had a 20-year issue we talked about all the time.
Yeah.
And guess what? It's back, man. It's back. Nick Suzuki is, I'm sorry, right now, he so far, Nick Suzuki has been a 60-point player, right?
Yeah.
He's a 60-point player, your 1C.
No. Brian, they paid him.
What world is your 60-point player a 1C?
They paid him hoping that he's going to become a 70-plus point player. They're paying him for his potential. And I'm sorry. Like, if he plays to his potential and he produces to his potential, it'll be a good deal for both teams. Right now, I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure why they didn't give him like a 3-year deal at 15 or 16 or whatever.
Yeah, no, I like the contract, but they've just put him in the wrong slot. the contract's going to be fine. I mean, he's going to be he'll be playing the best hockey of his career on the back end of that contract.
True enough.
It's going to be the right age. It's not like he's going to be over 30 and you got to pay for the crap years of a player, like Ladd. So that's okay with me. But when you slot guys in the wrong place, that's when you get problems. I mean, we all know that. And so you got him slotted as a 1C, he's a 2. And you got Dvorak, he's slotted as maybe a 1 or a 2. He's clearly a 2. Jake's slotted as a 3. He's a 4. The 4 is not even an NHLer. I mean, it's just when you got. And
I am not so sure, and I love the guy.
You got the pairings too, Tony.
Yeah.
And the pairings at the D, you got the same issue. You
Yeah.
got Petrie, he's a first pair guy, but his partner's not. And I mean, that's how you get in trouble, right?
You're right.
Your matchups are always lousy. You're always playing against someone better. So Suzuki's now always facing someone super good.
You're right.
And that's how problems start. And his partner is now facing the best players. And that's how your problems start.
All right. So listen, I like Dvorak a lot, but even him, I said on the last podcast that I think every centerman is slotted one spot above where they should be for them to be a legitimate contender. So I think Suzuki should be a 2. I think Dvorak should be a 3, and I think Evans should be a 4. Now, maybe Suzuki proves to us at one point that he's a 1, and that's fine. But then Dvorak could still be a 3. Evans could still be a 4. I think they needed a center iceman.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've been saying that for about a month. They thought that Dvorak was going to replace Danault and that Evans and everyone else was going to replace Kotkaniemi. I don't see it that way. I think they needed Dvorak along with Danault. Look, I gotta tell you this.
Yeah.
I know Philip Danault signed for a lot of money at $5.5 million. And throughout the entire year, we all said you can't give Philip Danault that money. Now, Brian, 2 wrongs will make a right.
Yeah.
But if you're going to give Josh Anderson 5.5, Jonathan Drouin's making 5.5, you've given Brendan Gallagher 6.5, and now you're giving Nick Suzuki $7.875 million.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't Danault worth 5.5?
Well, and this is the point I wanted to make when I was listening to you talk about him. I mean, maybe people who got frustrated with his offense didn't think he deserved that money. But for the last 4 NHL seasons, Philip Danault was one of the top play drivers in the entire NHL. And for 3 years, one of the top 5 lines in the league. And, people don't really know this, but Danault, Tatar, and Gallagher were top 5 lines in the league. In Corsi, Fenwick, goals expected. I mean, whichever metric you want to use in analytics, they were top 5. So even if you don't believe in analytics, there's still, even if you're not respectful of them, you can't ignore them completely.
Time spent in the offensive zone.
Because it was so consistent. They were always up there. And at one point, in 3 seasons, they were number 1 line in the league at driving play. So you see that they're missing that driving play. That's 64% is a high driving play number. And that's what that line could do, even though Tatar fell out of favor in the playoffs.
I'm going to have myself a Cherry River Hard Seltzer, only 90 calories, natural flavors, no preservatives, now available in Quebec grocery stores and the beer store. Here we go. 2 speed questions. If you can give me the answer.
Okay, I got in trouble the last speed question last time.
If you can give me the answers in 30 seconds here. Number 1, Francois Gagnon joined me on the last episode. He'd like to see Jonathan Drouin at the center ice position. Once everyone comes back, he thinks that'll fix. You can have 3 offensive lines if you put him there. Yes or no?
I love Frankie, but no. He tried that already. He was no good at it.
All right. And question number 2.
He wasn't. He was no good.
Yeah. And question number 2. They've lost 3 in a row. Mm-hmm. How bad do you think this can get?
Oh, boy. I'll tell you what. I think it can get pretty bad, I'm afraid.
You don't like I don't like their team either. I'd love to tell you I do.
It's been a really negative 20 minutes, and I feel really bad about that.
No, it's because the reality is negative. We're not negative people. The reality is negative. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to be positive. I'm a positive guy, but the reality is not very good so far. They got 3 goals in 3 games. Their defensive core is not very good. They don't have a puck-moving defenseman. They don't transition well to take advantage of speed from their forwards. Their power play is horrendous. It hasn't scored, including 2 5-on-3 opportunities. Their PK is operating at about 60%. There's just nothing,
Lack of
except Jake Allen.
Position.
Except for Jake Allen. That's the only thing, man, that I can point out right now that's really that positive.
They better win on Tuesday versus the San Jose
I think
Sharks,
they will.
because on Thursday, I would imagine there's one Jesperi Kotkaniemi who'll put a few dollars on the board, and he has some of those dollars because he got a pretty big paycheck from the Carolina Hurricanes.
That's a good point. I like it.
We'll talk to you soon. I'm going to give out a pick here. Cheers. Thanks, Brian. Now time to make some money.
It's time for Sick Picks, brought to you by MyBookie.
Right, so you can place your bets on MyBookie. Go to mybookie.ag/the-sick-podcast and use code SickPicks to double your deposit. Bet, win, get paid on Monday night in the National Hockey League. The New York Rangers will be in Toronto to take on the Toronto Maple Leafs. The Toronto Maple Leafs will win the game, and you're going to see goals. The game is going to go over. And the game between Florida and Tampa Bay on Tuesday night, that game, you'll also see goals, and it will go over as well. I'm Marinaro. Habs, you heard me. You better beat San Jose on Tuesday, because Carolina is coming after you on Thursday night. It's a Sick Podcast.